Hi everybody and welcome back to another video. So in light of the recent announcement of Harry Potter getting a TV adaptation, I thought in this video I'll just list off my top 5 Harry Potter moments. Now of course we know that the 8 films that they've had have been adaptations of the 7 novels by J.K. Rowling, and it probably is the most successful series of books that we've ever seen. And I think a significant part of Harry Potter for me is the significant depth of plot and the overwhelming amount of characters that we have. There are a lot of them, and there's a lot of depth within the stories that are really elaborated a lot more in the books than there are in the films. That's why I think a Harry Potter TV series works, because it allows us to go into more detail of certain events that weren't in the films, that were in the books, that could be in the TV show. And because of the very deep plots in Harry Potter, there are a lot of fantastic moments, and even though this was really hard to pick just 5, but the reason why I've chosen all of these is because they all served significant roles that changed the course of the entire series. So starting off with number 5. Now this one might appear unusual actually, because this ending actually wasn't how the original book ended. It was just something that was just pure satisfaction, and that is the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets ending, in which Hagrid has proved his innocence and he returns to Hogwarts and he receives a standing ovation from staff and students. And that moment of just when Hagrid approaches them and he just says thank you to all 3 of them, Harry gives that very touching line of "there's no Hogwarts without you, Hagrid," and just the reactions of seeing everyone cry and then they all start standing and clapping. It's just very touching and very emotional, and I think it's a great tribute to Robbie Coltrane, because of course he sadly passed away last year. I think the whole sentiment of the line that Harry says, it's almost kind of parallel to Robbie Coltrane now, because there would be no Harry Potter without Robbie Coltrane, and there'd be no Hogwarts without Hagrid, would there? Because when you look at it from that perspective, when he says those lines in that scene, Harry wouldn't be where he is without Hagrid's contribution, and Hagrid not being at Hogwarts would feel empty. But that emotionally satisfying moment of knowing Hagrid's innocent, and obviously being a tribute now to Robbie Coltrane, and the wonderful music from John Williams as well, really set the tone, and it was just purely the most wonderful ending. It really was, and that's why it still remains one of my favourite Harry Potter moments. So, number 4. Number 4 for me is the incredible scene involving the characters of not just Harry, Ron and Hermione, but also Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, Peter Pettigrew and Severus Snape from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I mean, just the fact you've got 3 young rising stars in a very significant scene with 4 of Britain's greatest actors, Gary Oldman, David Thewlis, the late Alan Rickman and Timothy Spall. And why that scene is so special in the Harry Potter series is because it really allowed us to get into the original history of Harry's family. And I know obviously it's Harry's parents' friends, but it showed us a lot more into where Harry came from and what his parents were like when they were young and who they had those relationships with. But it was particularly crucial because the film was leading up to Harry's encounter with Sirius Black, because we were initially thinking that Sirius had broken out of Azkaban to then go and kill Harry, but it turned out that's not the case at all. He was going to break out of prison to kill Peter Pettigrew, find Harry and prove his innocence. And just the unravelling of that twist within the dialogue was just remarkable. It was just beautifully done, because when Harry sees Sirius for the first time, he has that kind of sinister look about him and you think, oh god, he's going to kill him, isn't he? And then he lets him attack him, and then Remus turns up and you think to yourself, oh, something's not quite right here. And then Snape does, after which Harry attacks him. Then Harry starts to ask Sirius and Lupin about Pettigrew, which actually turns out to be the rat who's in the room on Ron's lap, who was his family pet for over 10 years. And just the way that the scene really unravelled that twist. It wasn't abrupt, it wasn't sudden, it just slowly opened up like a box, like you're slowly opening a package and then you lift the lid up and then go, oh my gosh, wow. And it kind of changed the course of the direction of the story, because Harry's family isn't just his mum and dad who've sadly passed away and his aunt, uncle and cousin who basically don't care about him, but as Sirius and Remus Lupin, who are close friends of his dad, basically like brothers. And it was just a scene that was just beautifully made, it was beautifully written, the acting was incredible, and also what I really liked is the set that it was taking place in as well. It was of course the Shrieking Shack, and you could hear very distinct creaks in the room where it was just moving very, very softly. It really just added to the eerie kind of feeling and tone. It is truly an incredible scene, and that's why I will put it up there among the best Harry Potter moments. So, number 3. So number 3, I've gone with probably the most unique scene in the entire series, and that is Hermione Granger's telling of the tale of the three brothers. And obviously the most distinct feature of that scene is that it's animated. It's just unlike any other kind of animation that we've ever really seen before, because it was almost done like a stage play. There's one moment, for example, when she tells the story of how the second brother killed himself because he wanted to be with the bride who untimely passed away. And you see that moment when she's fading, then you see afterwards, straight away, her physical presence was still there in the foreground, and then death ended up hooking him up. So it kind of felt like it was theatre. When you watch a theatre show, you see that the sets change, and that's why I think the animation style in this sense was really interesting. But it was also a story that made a significant impact to the latter stages of the series, where you find out that the three Hallows actually exist, in which Harry has kept one for years already, and then he ends up owning the other two almost at the same time. But as a sequence, it gave us a lot more context into the origins of the wizarding world beyond what we were told, for example, in the moment when McGonagall was talking about the history of the Chamber of Secrets and Hogwarts origins. It was significant to the overall context and the history of the Hallows that paid a contribution to that present time. And I think as well, the correlations between the three brothers relate to the three characters in Harry Potter. Of course, the first brother like Voldemort, who craves power, the second brother like Snape, who had a lost loved one, and the third brother who was like Harry, who was a lot more noble and wise. It was just beautifully narrated by Emma Watson as Hermione Granger, and it was like a fairy tale, which is unusual really, given that it's a story about magic. So that's why I would put the tale of the three brothers in my top 5 Harry Potter moments. So number 2. And number 2, from my point of view, is quite self-indulgent because it's a scene that is really just very close to my heart and it's very emotional. It's the epilogue sequence in which we find that Harry has defeated Voldemort, and that scene is set nearly 20 years after. And Harry's grown up, he's got a career, he's got married to Ginny, and he's had 3 children with her. It's just the emotion of watching the actors who we grew up with are now grown adults and are playing characters looking after children. It really kind of triggered a lot of things for me personally about how I'm not a kid anymore, I'm an adult, and I might have kids of my own in the future. And you know, it was a moment that was just a very emotional and overwhelming experience that really ended the series absolutely perfectly. Well, up until the point of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Whether we'll get that as a film or not in the future, I'm not entirely sure, but for the Harry Potter saga, this is probably the best of how it could have ended. And just that moment of when you see Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and even Malfoy say bye to their children as they go to Hogwarts, it really is the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. I mean, the music really adds to it as well, because of course it's the original end theme by John Williams that was added to it too, which only makes it even more emotional. So yeah, that's a really special, significant moment in the Harry Potter series, and it's one of my favourites. So I've listed 4 of my top 5 Harry Potter moments. What is my number 1 Harry Potter scene of all time? Let's find out. Now this one was an absolute no-brainer for me, because out of every other scene in the Harry Potter series, especially at the crucial stage of it nearly ending, having got to know the character for so long, it totally changed our perspective. Because in the memories of Severus Snape, we learned so many different things. We learned that he loved Harry's mother from a very young age, that he was bullied by his dad, and throughout the entire series, he wasn't antagonising Harry, he was protecting him. He only showed signs of antagonism because of his hatred for his dad. But we also found out that Dumbledore wasn't murdered by Snape, that it was planned between them because Dumbledore was dying, and that Snape was acting as a double agent by working with Dumbledore against Voldemort. So in that scene there was a lot of twists and turns that were really unravelled in this, and I think it only raised the stakes even more leading up to the very last climax of the film and the whole series in general. And you could argue that it's a scene that could have gone horribly wrong, because there were so many different strands and plot elements that were almost put into one entire sequence that it would either leave the audience confused and it would just be a bit chaotic. But it was done absolutely perfectly, because it was in a kind of time structure from the past when Snape was young to the present day. So it was kind of telling Snape's story, and just the visuals of how it told that story were just beautiful as well. The sound effects, the use of the different transitions in the editing with the black smoke, and just the voices from Trelawney and Voldemort and Dumbledore, the whispers, and just all these things really added to the emotion of what the character has been through and what he's gone through leading up to the moments when he died. And a lot like Robbie Coltrane in the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets ending, as I talked about earlier, this scene also typifies why Alan Rickman was such a legendary British actor. He really was a perfect choice for Snape, he really was. And even though we always looked at Snape as a very, menacing and very scheming kind of character to begin with, he really showcased his emotion a lot more in this sequence. And just that moment of when he casts the Patronus charm, then Dumbledore says Lily after all this time, and then just the emotion on his face when he says always. That's something that will pull at the heartstrings of many fans, not just because it's Snape, but also because it's Alan Rickman, who sadly passed away since then. And that's why I think it is Alan Rickman's best ever moment in his career. So yeah, I would list that as my ultimate Harry Potter moment. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 Harry Potter moments, and I will be adding a few honourable mentions at the end of this video, highlighting a few other moments that didn't quite make the list but I feel deserve a mention anyway. So what did you think of my top 5 Harry Potter moments? Are there some in this video that you would have included as well, or are they completely different? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did want to enjoy this video, then please hit that like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell ticked so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care everybody.